What's going on, everyone? My name's Eric, and today on the channel we have this guitar here. This is the Jericho Fusion Evertune Walnut Baritone guitar. It's a mouthful to say, but there's a lot of features about this guitar and Jericho guitars in general that we're going to learn about a little bit later on in this video. Before we do that, let's hear this guitar in a full demo mix. And that was the Jericho Fusion Evertune Walnut Baritone guitar in a full demo mix. The signal chain was real simple. The guitar was tuned to drop B. It was then going into the Omega suite from Neural DSP and using one of my own custom presets, and that's pretty well the guitar signal. No post-processing or anything like that. And I want to make that really clear because for the average person that might want to buy these guitars or just kind of use this in a studio setting or something like that, the average person isn't really going to have a ton of outboard gear or anything like that. A lot of people are just going to be plugging straight into an interface and maybe going into a plug-in or some sort of modeler for their first time. So I really wanted to highlight this guitar going straight in with no extra bells or whistles or no extra EQing just to make the guitar shine. Because as you just heard, this guitar sounds really, really good in a full mix. So essentially this guitar here, this Jericho Fusion Walnut Baritone Evertune guitar, this one as well as their other production guitars are made overseas. You know, that is their production line made in Korea. They do have a couple USA made guitars, but it seems like their production models are the ones that really put them on the map, especially with their vintage styling, with their modern features as well. And something I want to address really quick, especially with this video and this guitar, is that it is not sponsored by Jericho. They didn't send it to me. I didn't buy this guitar. This guitar is owned by one of my very good friends who asked me to set it up for him. So I thought I'd make a video and share my honest thoughts and opinions about this guitar here, especially because you can't go and buy Jericho guitars off the shelf as they sell direct to the customer. So most of us aren't going to really know how these guitars play, feel, and sound until we actually get it in our hands, and that's what I really want to share with you all today. And just going over the guitar with like a general fit and finish and a feel and everything like that before we get into the real nitty gritty, this guitar feels really good. It feels like a really solid guitar. It is made in Korea alongside some of the other made in Korea brands that you might be familiar with, such as Schecter, LTD, you know, PRS, SE line. I'm not sure if Jericho Guitars makes these in the same factory, but generally all production guitars that are made in South Korea are pretty well at such a high standard now that it's kind of hard to beat them in terms of specs, and if you're looking for something that's unique as this, especially if you want that vintage and modern styling, and as well if you are on a budget and you're looking for something that checks a lot of boxes without having to go for a fully custom built guitar. And keeping with the theme of the build quality, let's talk about the specs here real fast. And this guitar is actually spec'd out very, very well for the price that it comes in at, which we will talk about later. Starting things off, we have this mahogany body here. We then have a mahogany neck. The neck shape is actually very, very comfy as well. It's not super offensive or anything. It's not super thick or vintage style given the look and the shape of this guitar. This guitar has a modern C-shaped feel, and it's not super thin like an Ibanez or anything, so your hand isn't going to cramp up over time for playing it. It feels really nice in the palm of my hand, and especially having tracked with this guitar for the entire demo song and for the clips that you're hearing in between the talking segments of this video, it honestly feels really good and it feels really comfortable, and I'm sure if you buy one of these guitars, you're going to be pleasantly surprised with the shape of the neck and how well it feels. The neck is also kind of like a set in and like a set through design as well. Generally, that was usually found back in the day on more higher end and premium guitars, and usually the bolt-on guitars were reserved for maybe the more inexpensive guitars. Obviously, things have changed, but the neck joint and the upper access heel on this feels really good. You can hit all 22 frets on this guitar. And speaking of those 22 frets, they are stainless steel as well on an ebony fingerboard. And that's the thing. Pretty well all guitars should have stainless steel frets frets in my opinion, especially because we live in 2023. And these stainless steel frets are not going to wear out the more you play it. It will be harder to work with these from a manufacturing standpoint, but you will never have to replace your stainless steel frets on your guitar, as they will never wear out. We also have a 27.5-inch scale, given this is a baritone. And honestly, if this is your first time maybe trying a baritone or anything like that, and you're worried of maybe the scale length is going to be too long, my biggest recommendation is actually to go and try playing some of your favorite 6-string riffs on your baritone guitar, seeing how they sound, maybe in a different tuning or something like that of what this guitar ships in, and then get familiar with the guitar that way. The scale length on this guitar doesn't feel super long or super crazy by comparison to, let's say, like a Fender Strat or any other guitars that have 25.5-inch scale lengths on them. This is really comfy. It's just a little bit longer, but it's not outlandish, and it's something that you can adjust to very, very quickly. Keeping in with the theme of the name here, we also have an Evertune bridge. And I gotta say, after having restrung the guitar and putting new strings on it and tracking with this guitar, I haven't touched the tuning, which is a pretty amazing thing. Even going through and doing multiple takes for all the performances and everything like that, didn't have to tune the guitar once because the Evertune just does its job so well. The unfortunate thing about the Evertune is that it does add a good amount of weight to the guitar, or any sort of guitar that it is fitted to, and that is apparent here, especially with the mahogany body and neck. This particular guitar is on the heavier side, so I would say it's around maybe the traditional Les Paul weight, maybe around 10 pounds or something like that. So it is going to be a little bit heavier maybe on your shoulder and on your back, but if you can live with that, or even if you just want this as a purely tracking guitar, this is probably going to be a fantastic option as well. Keeping with the theme of tuning stability, we have these locking tuners here. They're great, they do their job, they don't slip or anything like that. You know, again, same thing with stainless steel frets. I think all guitars should have locking tuners, and it just makes your life easier for restringing the guitar, and it actually holds tune very well, especially if you don't have an Evertune on your guitar. Graphtec Tusk nut here. We got the big block Perloid inlays here. We then have 2 Seymour Duncan pickups, but if you don't like Seymour Duncan pickups, Jericho Guitars offers a few other pickup choices as well that you can select from the factory before you get this guitar. And then we have this kind of like a Les Paul style control layout here. We got 2 volumes, 2 tones here, 3-way toggle selector, and you can also split the coils to then access single coil mode for each of the pickups. So essentially that's kind of it for this guitar. It's very versatile, it's very well rounded in terms of specs and in terms of the fit and the finish and everything like that. And I really feel like Jericho knocked it out of the park with these guitars in terms of the specs that you get for the price. Now, talking about the price of the guitar, this is where it really surprised me based on all the features that we have on this guitar. You know, the guitar is made of mahogany, it's a set through neck construction, ebony board, stainless steel frets, Evertune, high quality pickups and everything like that. You would think a guitar like this would be a pretty hefty price to pay, especially if you're looking at the USA customs or maybe like very small builder custom models that are doing the exact same thing as this. This guitar actually comes in at $12.99 US, which is pretty insane for what you're getting here. Sure, it doesn't have certain things, like maybe it doesn't have the tummy cut on the back of the guitar or anything. I had to install some strap locks on the guitar as well, but honestly, those are all things we can live with here. We have the forearm contour here. That's a very important thing to have on your guitar as well. This guitar has quality pickups, it has a killer bridge. Honestly, the fret edges are really good. I've played more expensive guitars that have had worse fret edges and worse frets in general from bigger manufacturers. And yeah, overall, the attention to detail and the fit and finish is just fantastic on this guitar. My only complaint with this guitar so far is that it is a little heavy, so I wouldn't want to maybe play an entire hour-long gig with this. I think that would be a little bit tiring, especially on my shoulder or on my back, and especially if you're trying to make touring easier, this might be maybe like a backup guitar for you, or maybe just a studio tracker given the weight. And one final thing that I can maybe find to complain about is that it doesn't ship with a hard shell case, but because this is essentially like a Telecaster, you can find pretty well any sort of molded Telecaster case that should pretty well fit this, or any sort of unmolded one that will fit a baritone, and you're going to be fine. It's not like you're dealing with a crazy shape that has a proprietary case or anything. Because this is a very classic design, you're going to have a lot of options for cases. But I think if Jericho was able to address that and offer a few different options for maybe padded gig bags or hard shell cases from the factory at an additional price, I think that would be an awesome selling feature as well moving forward. And overall, that's going to kind of do it for today's video. I really don't have anything negative to say about this guitar, as I'm thoroughly impressed and blown away about this guitar, especially what it has to offer for the price point compared to other guitars. Especially in that $1299 US market, or that $1,000 price point, you're going to find some guitars that maybe have these features. They might not have the aesthetic, but especially combining things like an Evertune, a baritone, Telecaster shape. I know Telecasters are really hot nowadays. And we have the Les Paul control layout and everything. It's a very unique guitar. It does the vintage modern thing very, very well, especially being a baritone, especially being at an affordable price with killer specs. If you don't like the 3/3 headstock, well, you might have to live with it, or otherwise you might be going to a full-blown USA custom. And one final thing about the guitar, it's interesting seeing a 3/3 headstock on a Telecaster shaped guitar, especially being only used to seeing like 6 in line and everything like that. It kind of works for this guitar if I can get it all on camera and everything. It definitely works. It's maybe not my first choice, but it's honestly not offensive, and if I was to put my own money on this guitar, I would be happy with it as well, because it's actually a nice change. But if you are a purist and you want something a little bit more traditional with the 6 in line headstock, you might have to look elsewhere, especially if you're wanting Evertune and a baritone scale length as well. I think that's when you would probably have to get into the USA custom or the small luthier custom builds. But if you're okay with a few compromises in life, and if you're able to settle with a couple different appointments here on this guitar, I think you're going to be more than happy with this guitar, as it totally checks every box that I would look for in a baritone Telecaster, and it does it super, super well. And that's going to do it for today's video, checking out the Jericho Fusion Evertune baritone walnut guitar here. Once again, this video is not sponsored by Jericho or anything like that. This is just a guitar that came in for a setup, and I wanted to share my thoughts and opinions to you all, because you cannot buy these guitars on dealer shelves or anything like that. You can only get these guitars direct from Jericho Guitars, or if they pop up on the used market. And I totally understand if people don't want to gamble with maybe $1,000 or more on buying a guitar that they have never played before. But honestly, I would say it is totally worth it. This guitar feels really good. It stays out of your way. It's not offensive. It is a little bit on the heavier side due to the Evertune and the all mahogany design. But in terms of tuning stability and just the overall form and the fit and function of this guitar, you can't really beat it for that $1299 US price point. Let me know in the comments below what you think about Jericho guitars and their other offerings as well. And if you like this video, consider giving it a thumbs up. And if you're new here, make sure you subscribe. I got tons more videos like this, and as well going over setup tutorials, guitar maintenance tips, and lots of other topics in music and metal guitar. Thanks for checking this out, and I'll see you next time.